So we're going back to my childhood, and possibly your childhood, to discuss the Kobe and Shaq era of the Lakers. But this time, Kobe and Shaq will not be mentioned at all. Instead, we're going to be talking about the role players. We're going to have a fun discussion, and we're going to try to decide which of our beloved role players was the most important piece to our three-peat run. We've seen a lot of important pieces come and go during that 3-year span. So let's go down the list and eliminate a few options before we get to the 3 finalists. So the first player that we're going to scratch out is Glenn Rice. I think he was the best individual talent that the Lakers had other than Shaq and Kobe, and he had the highest points per game average out of any other player for a single season. He was one of my favorite players growing up, and I thought he had the sweetest jump shot. However, he wasn't the best fit for the triangle offense, and he was a bit inconsistent throughout the year, so he's out. The other notable one-and-done players include AC Green, Horace Grant, Isaiah Ryder, Lindsey Hunter, and Samaki Walker, although Samaki did play in the 2003 season. There's no question that we value their contributions, some more than others, but I think we're all in agreement that they shouldn't be seriously considered the best role player that we had. So that leaves us with these players: Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, Robert Horry, Brian Shaw, Tyronn Lue, and Ron Harper. Who should be the 3 finalists? Well, it should at least consist of players that played throughout the 3 years that the Lakers won. So Ron Harper and Tyronn Lue are out. Ron Harper retired after the 2001 season, and Tyronn Lue signed with the Washington Wizards in the 2001 offseason. Now for the final player that we are going to take out. I think we should take out Brian Shaw. When you look at the numbers, the most he averaged with us was 5 points per game. And once the 2002 season came along, he was only playing 10 minutes a game. Understandably, he brought a lot of veteran leadership. He was a voice of reason for this team, and we can't forget his immense contributions in Game 7 against the Blazers in 2000 when he scored 9 huge points in the final 13 minutes of the game. But it's only right that the last 3 players come down to Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, and Robert Horry. Let's make the case for each player. Let's start with our leader, Derek Fisher. For the 3 seasons combined, he averaged 9 points per game on 39% shooting, 2.9 assists per game, and 2.1 rebounds per game for the regular season. And for the playoffs, he averaged 9.1 points per game on 42% shooting, 2.6 rebounds per game, and 2.5 assists per game. There's no question that his best year came in 2001. He missed the majority of the season after healing from a broken foot, but once he came back, he helped the Lakers get back on track after a rather disappointing season. What transpired after was the greatest playoff run we've ever seen. For the first 3 rounds, he made 25 of 49 threes while committing only 6 turnovers. He was averaging 15 points per game. Think about that for a second. Kobe and Shaq were both averaging over 30 points per game, and then they had a third player that was averaging 15 points while shooting with incredible efficiency. No wonder they were unbeatable. But that wasn't his only shining moment. Countless times when we needed a timely bucket from him, he would deliver with a back-breaking shot. We've seen it time and time again with this player. Aside from what he did on the court, he was also one of the team's emotional leaders. The one that could reach out to Kobe and reel him back in when he was going at it with Shaq. So he contributed to this team in many ways. If you're going to make the argument for him, you would say that the Lakers were at their best when Derek Fisher was playing out of his mind in 2001. But let's hold off on that for a second, and let's go to the next player and talk about Rick Fox. For the 3 years, he averaged 8 points per game on 43% shooting, 3.7 rebounds per game, and 2.8 assists per game. For the playoffs, he averaged 7.7 points per game on 46% shooting, 3.8 rebounds per game, and 2.6 assists per game. We have another veteran leader that helped create peace in the locker room whenever there was turmoil between the 2 stars. He was also the unofficial spokesman for the Lakers because, well, just look at him. So like Fisher, I remember Fox keeping the harmony of this team during some tough times. But his play is something that we shouldn't be quick to dismiss. For the 2001 playoffs, he averaged in double figures. He did his part on the scoring end, but he was also the team's defensive stopper. Just ask the sharpshooter Peja Stojakovic, who shot less than 40% from the field in their semifinals matchup. As far as clutch performances go, look at what he did in Game 7 against the Kings in 2002. He had 13 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists in that huge game. I just remember Foxy either giving us a 20-point performance or he would disappear and give us 6 points. It was hard to know what version we were getting, but he was mainly there for defensive purposes, and he helped alleviate some of Kobe's load on that end of the floor so he can have enough energy to take over games. That was really the whole formula that made this team successful. In the triangle offense, everyone got their touches, but Shaq and Kobe were obviously the primary scoring options. But the team was built around a dominant defense that made it very tough for teams to score at an efficient rate. When you look at their 2000 season when they won 67 games, obviously, Shaq was a major reason behind all that, but they were also a top 3 defensive team. They didn't put nearly as enough attention on stopping other teams the following year, and that's a big reason why they won only 56 games. In 2002, they went back to being a top 5 defensive team, and that helped carry this team behind the offensive brilliance of Shaq and Kobe. Rick Fox played a major role in that. He probably won't be our top pick here, but he deserves his roses. Last but not least, we have Robert Horry. For the 3 years, he averaged 5.9 points per game on 40% shooting, 4.8 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game. For the playoffs, he averaged 7.7 points per game on 41% shooting, 6.2 rebounds per game, and 2.6 assists per game. We'll get to all the clutch shots in a second. We all know that's what he's mostly known for. But let me get through a couple of more things first. First of all, it's his versatility. The dude was ahead of his time. He was big enough to handle all the great power forwards that were playing during that time that we met in the playoffs. You talk about Rasheed Wallace, Chris Webber, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett. But he was also a great help defender because he was able to bother the opposition with his length. And if you switched up on him with a smaller player, well, he was quick enough to handle them. His most impressive defensive performance came in the 2002 semifinal series against the Spurs. The MVP of the league, Tim Duncan, averaged 29 points per game on 42% shooting. Some credit goes to Shaq for clogging the middle, which limited Duncan to dominate on the post. But Horry, who was his primary defender, did such a tremendous job of forcing him to take tough shots, and he was never able to have that one dominant game. He doesn't get enough credit for the type of job he did on the defensive end for all those years. Then on offense, he had a reliable outside shot that allowed the Lakers to spread the floor. There was room for Kobe to penetrate and for Shaq to do his thing on the post. He was such an important weapon for this team, but his biggest contribution came when the pressure was on in big playoff moments. In 2000, he was the team's 3rd leading scorer in that infamous Game 7 against the Blazers. He had 12 points. In Kobe's coming out party against the Pacers in Game 4 of the finals, again, he was the 3rd leading scorer with 17 points in that overtime victory. Then when it was time to close it out, Horry scored 8 huge points in the 4th quarter to help contain the Pacers in Game 6. In the 2001 finals, Game 3, Shaq fouls out with 2.5 minutes left in the game. Who carried this team in that 4th quarter? It was Robert Horry. He scored 12 points in the final period, including this 3-pointer that saved the day. And then we have the 2002 playoffs. We start with Game 3 against the Blazers in the first round. He made this game-winning 3-pointer with 2 seconds left to eliminate Portland. Then we have the series against Sacramento. In Game 4, he scored 11 points in the 4th quarter, including converting on one of the biggest shots in NBA history that saved the Lakers season. And in Game 7, the dude had 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. In that game, all 5 starters scored in double figures. That game is the best example that proves that the Lakers had some amazing role players. It wasn't just always Shaq and Kobe. So now it's time to pick, which is super hard for me because I love them all so much. But in my case, if you've been following my work, you know that in my book, I wrote about the all-time greatest players and teams, and I had a whole chapter dedicated to Robert Horry. I can safely say that if it wasn't for him, there is no three-peat, and there is no dynasty. I don't know if we can say that about anyone else. For Derek Fisher, we don't make history in 2001, but I don't know if I would go as far as to strip that title away. But Robert Horry had that kind of impact, so I'm going with him. But all my fellow Laker fans, comment below on who you would pick, in case I'm missing something. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching the video. Till next time.